Hello and welcome back to the Hazzabhajan YouTube channel. It is Harry here, and today it is time for the second installment of this new mini-series that I've decided to start, looking at various clubs and their record signings since a certain time frame, in this case since 1992, and ranking them from worst to best. I've decided to make this into a mini-series because I quite enjoyed doing the one which I did a few weeks ago, looking at Manchester City's record signings during the Premier League era and ranking them from worst to best. You can check that video out at the end of this one. I'll make sure to leave a link to it on screen if you haven't watched it already, and thought I might as well expand it out and look at a few other clubs. So for the second installment in this series, we move over to look at City's crosstown rivals, Manchester United. Thankfully, for me at least, their record signings since 1992 were all unanimously agreed upon with all the sources that I used, and there are only 11 of them, rather than 15 as there were with City. Like I said last time, the players will be ranked as signings rather than as players, with factors such as legacy, impact, cost, sell-on value, and performances of the club all taken into account. And of course, this is just in my opinion, and you are more than welcome to disagree with me. And let me know what changes you would make to my list down in the comments below, as well as any other clubs you would like to see me do this type of video with. If you go on to enjoy it, please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. And without any further ado, here is how I would rank each of Manchester United's Premier League era record signings from worst to best. 11th, Paul Pogba. A few months ago, I graded every Premier League era record signing by any club from A star to F, and I gave a C to Paul Pogba's £89 million transfer to United from Juventus in 2016, higher than two other players who will feature in this video. However, given that Pogba has since departed on a free back to Turin after 6 very inconsistent years that have been plagued by attitude problems and injuries, I've changed my mind, and he now rightly takes his place as Manchester United's worst Premier League era record transfer, in my opinion. There was a lot of hype when Pogba returned to Old Trafford following 4 years away, with #PogBack trending, a promotional song and video by Adidas with rapper Stormzy being released, with Pogba featuring in that video, and the fee involved beating Gareth Bale's 2013 move to Real Madrid to make the French midfielder the most expensive player of all time. But whilst he had his moments in the United shirt and was inspired in the few months following Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's appointment as caretaker manager in December 2018, moments of brilliance and half a season of world-class performances do not justify a fee, and indeed a hype, of that magnitude. Admittedly, the club never really used him correctly, either pairing him up with somebody who didn't suit his style of play, or just not putting him on the left side of central midfield in a diamond, a position in which he had flourished at Juventus. But so much more was expected of him, and ultimately, he failed to deliver. Aforementioned attitude problems led to him being dropped from the team more often than not towards the end of his time at Old Trafford, and it seems as though fans are now glad to see the back of him following his release this summer and subsequent move back to Juventus. Sums it all up, really. 10th, Juan Sebastian Veron. Thanks to Pogba's disastrous end to his time at Old Trafford, Juan Sebastian Veron's transfer from Lazio in 2001 for £28 million is lifted from the bottom of the pile, albeit not by much. The creative and technically gifted Argentine midfielder started off strongly as Sir Alex Ferguson switched from his tried and tested 4-4-2 to a 4-5-1 formation in order to accommodate him, and he put in a few good showings. However, it broke up the trusted quartet of Roy Keane, David Beckham, Ryan Giggs and Paul Scholes, who were much more suited to the Premier League's physical style than Veron was, and over time he slowly lost his place in the team for domestic competitions. Although he featured heavily in the Champions League, a competition which suited his style of play much better, he just couldn't settle as a Manchester United player in spite of Ferguson's best attempts. So adamant was the Scot about keeping Veron at United and making him an integral part of the team, it led to one famous expletive-laden rant in 2002 at a journalist who'd questioned the Argentine's place in the United lineup. In the end though, it just didn't work out, and he was sold to Chelsea in 2003, where he somehow fared even worse, for just over half of what the Red Devils had originally paid for him. So with all that in mind, 10th is where he has to come. 9th, Ángel Di María. The only thing that puts Ángel Di Maria's £59.3 million transfer from Real Madrid in 2014 slightly higher than his compatriot Veron's is his sell-on value, as United still recouped a lot, albeit not all, of what they had originally paid for him, as PSG paid £44.6 million for his services in 2015. Nevertheless, he has not spoken fondly about his time at Old Trafford, stating that he hated living in Manchester, not particularly helped by his house being burgled in January 2015, and that Louis van Gaal was the worst manager he'd ever played under. It looked so promising at the start for the Argentine winger, who notched up 3 goals and 6 assists in his first 10 games, but his off-field struggles started to translate over to his on-pitch displays, and he tailed off drastically following that blistering start. A red card in the FA Cup clash versus Arsenal was probably the final straw for his United career, and the Argentine, who recently also joined Juventus on a free much like Pogba, failed to become United's talisman as the club, and their fans, had desperately hoped he would become. 8th, Juan Mata. This is a really difficult signing to judge, because although Juan Mata didn't exactly do badly at Manchester United across his 8.5 years at the club, he also never really recaptured the form that made him such a superstar at Chelsea. His first 2 seasons at Stamford Bridge were nothing short of world class, as the silky, technical and creative Spaniard was involved in 88 goal contributions across 118 games, winning Chelsea's Player of the Season in both of those campaigns and lifting the Champions League and then the Europa League. But upon his appointment as Chelsea manager in the summer of 2013, Jose Mourinho took one look at Mata and decided that the Spaniard was not part of his plans. United snapped him up for £37.1 million in January 2014, and he was a regular feature under Louis van Gaal, playing in every 2015-16 Premier League game and scoring 2 vital goals in a 2-1 win against Liverpool in March 2015, including a spectacular scissor kick. However, when Van Gaal was replaced by Mourinho in 2016, Mata's game time dropped season by season, as other players arrived at the club to send him further down the pecking order. He never kicked up a fuss about not playing and never gave anything less than 100% whenever he did, but ultimately, the affable and charitable Spaniard couldn't perform on a frequent basis at Old Trafford, and he was released this summer too, after his contract expired. 7th, Dimitar Berbatov. From here on out, in my opinion, every single player left to feature was either a great or world-class signing by Manchester United, and to kickstart a magnificent 7, we have Bulgarian striker Dimitar Berbatov. After impressing for 2 seasons at Spurs, Ferguson went on record to say that Berbatov would join the club before the 2008 summer transfer window slammed shut, leading to Spurs lodging a complaint to the FA. But despite nouveau riche Manchester City launching a last-minute bid of their own in an attempt to hijack the deal, a bid which Spurs accepted, Berbatov later stated that he never gave the Blues a second thought, and eventually he got his wish on deadline day with a £30.75 million move. After impressing in his first 2 campaigns with 26 goals and 19 assists in all competitions, including showcasing the Berber spin to the world with a ridiculous assist against West Ham, it was in 2010-11 where Berbatov finally became the main man at Old Trafford. Whilst Wayne Rooney was embroiled in a contract dispute, the Bulgarian emphatically took centre stage, as a hat-trick against arch-rivals Liverpool, including a wonderful overhead kick, and 5 in one game against Blackburn, helped him win the Premier League Golden Boot tied with Carlos Tevez and his 2nd Premier League winners' medal. But the following campaign, his game time drastically reduced as Rooney rediscovered his goal-scoring touch, and in the summer of 2012, he was allowed to leave for Fulham for around £4.5 million. All in all, whilst he was never consistently the star man at Old Trafford and the club made a huge loss on him, his time there, in my opinion, was overall a success. But 7th is the best I can give nonetheless. 6th, Dwight Yorke. Sneaking in ahead of Berbatov is Trinidad and Tobago's Dwight Yorke, who was the Premier League's highest scoring non-European with 123 goals until Sergio Aguero overtook him in 2017. Following 3 fantastic seasons at Aston Villa in which he netted 61 goals in all competitions, Ferguson snapped him up for £12.6 million to partner someone who will feature later on in this video for the 1998-99 season. Despite the 2 strikers never having a good relationship off the pitch, they worked in harmony on it, and Yorke ended the campaign with 29 goals and 19 assists, as well as the Premier League Golden Boot and Premier League Player of the Year for his troubles, as United won an unprecedented treble of League, FA Cup and Champions League. He followed up that stellar season with 20 goals in 1999-2000 as the Red Devils won another league title, but over the next 2 years, his game time would also gradually reduce, which is becoming a common theme in this video. He did still find time to net a hat-trick in a 6-1 demolition job of Arsenal in 2001, but after not being offered a squad number for 2002-03, he was allowed to leave for Blackburn for just £2 million. Purely because of those 2 legendary campaigns where he was undoubtedly one of the best forwards on the planet, Yorke just gets in ahead of Berbatov, but you could probably swap those 2 around and I wouldn't argue with you for a second. 5th, Jaap Stam. The next three were very tough to order, but after a bit of consideration, I've given 5th to Jaap Stam, although not in any way because of his performances at the club, which would definitely warrant a podium finish. When he signed from Feyenoord in 1998 for £10.6 million, he became the most expensive defender in history, but he lived up to his price tag with his pace, strength and ability on the ball, making him the complete centre-back. Peter Schmeichel called him the best defender he'd ever played with, despite only playing alongside him for a single season. Although, in fairness, it was that aforementioned 1998-99 treble-winning campaign in which Stam was as formidable as ever. Another successful season in 1999-2000 preceded a lengthy spell on the sidelines with an ACL injury, but he returned to his imperious best when he came back from that setback and helped United complete their hat-trick of league titles. Stunningly though, Ferguson sold him to Lazio in 2001 for £16 million, believing the Dutchman was past his best as a result of that injury and reportedly being angered by Stam's autobiography and its claims about the Scot allegedly encouraging his players to dive. It would prove to be a mistake, as he spent 6 more years at the very top, and in 2007, Ferguson admitted that Stam was the only player he ever regretted selling. Even though he was arguably the best centre-back in the league for 3 years and commanded a bigger fee when they came to selling him, the aforementioned external circumstances mean that Stam, through no fault of his own, takes 5th. 4th, Ruud van Nistelrooy. Another Dutchman, Ruud van Nistelrooy was signed from PSV for £19 million in the summer that Stam departed, although had it not been for his serious knee injury, something which was only picked up during his first United medical, he would have joined the year before. He quickly made up for lost time with 36 goals in all competitions in his debut campaign, before a stellar 2002-03 campaign saw him net 44 times, including at least once in 10 consecutive league games, a record which stood until Jamie Vardy surpassed it in November 2015. A fox-in-the-box striker who was blessed with phenomenal attacking instincts, movement, pace and clinical finishing, Van Nistelrooy ended up with a total of 150 goals in 219 games for the Red Devils, picking up a plethora of individual honours, including 3 Champions League Golden Boots, 1 Premier League Golden Boot and the PFA Player of the Year in 2001-02. However, he only won 1 of each of the 3 domestic trophies on offer to him across his 5 years in Manchester, and in spite of his goal-scoring prowess, a few players have admitted that his style of play didn't particularly suit Ferguson's setup, which led to a comparative dearth of trophies by the high standards the Scot had set throughout his tenure at Old Trafford. Following a fallout with the manager after being left out of the 2006 League Cup final, the newly appointed PSV manager was allowed to leave that summer for Real Madrid for around €14 million. So with all that considered, I think 4th is just about fair. 3rd, Andrew Cole. The partner to Dwight Yorke, whom I referred to earlier, Andrew Cole had been at the club for 3.5 years by the time the Trinidadian marksman arrived, having broken the British transfer record fee when he moved from Newcastle to Manchester United in January 1995 for £7 million. 12 goals in 18 games in his first half season confirmed that United had a gem on their hands, and after recovering from 2 broken legs in 1996, he fought for, and won, his place back in the starting 11. Transitioning into a much more all-round centre-forward at Old Trafford than he had been for Newcastle, his goal-scoring output did decrease a little bit, but from 1998 to 2000, alongside Yorke, Cole bagged 46 goals in all competitions and won a plethora of trophies. What's more, when the time came to sell Cole in December 2001 to Blackburn, Man United still turned a profit on him in spite of Cole being aged 30 at this point, as the fee involved was reported to be around £8 million, so therefore in my opinion, he kickstarts our podium places. 2nd, Rio Ferdinand. It's almost splitting hairs between 1st and 2nd, and for basically any other team, Rio Ferdinand would have taken top spots in a list of this ilk, but in the end, he has to be content with a runners-up medal. Ferdinand was one of the most sought-after defenders in world football in 2002, given how impressive his performances for his then club Leeds had been, and how much financial dire straits Leeds found themselves in at that point. But after sitting in Chairman Peter Ridsdale's office for 6 hours, hoping for a move to Old Trafford, he eventually got his wish, with the £29.3 million fee involved, meaning Ferdinand set a British record transfer for a 2nd time in his career, and a world record fee for a defender for the 1st time. For that price, you would expect consistently excellent performances, and that's exactly what he gave to the club, racking up 455 appearances across 12 years, forming a legendary centre-back pairing with Nemanja Vidic, and winning everything on offer to him, including 1 Champions League, 6 Premier Leagues, and 3 League Cups. Another complete centre-back who had absolutely everything you would want in a defender, Ferdinand was the silkier and more elegant of the two at the heart of United's back line, with incredible skill on the ball and in the pass, as well as being blessed with tremendous pace and tackling ability, and many regard him as the greatest defender of the Premier League era. He left in 2014 as a club legend. First, Roy Keane. The reason why Rio Ferdinand is not in top spot is because of Roy Keane, arguably the most influential player alongside Eric Cantona that United have had on their books over the last 30 years. Signed in 1993 for a then British record fee of £3.75 million after Blackburn's agreement to sign him collapsed at the last minute owing to an admin error, it would certainly be interesting to think about how different the British footballing landscape might look now if Blackburn's staff had been able to contact Nottingham Forest at a time when their offices were open to get the deal done. Nonetheless, the Irish midfielder became the linchpin in United's midfield, driving them on to more success than they ever could have imagined and never settling for anything less than perfection from both himself and his teammates. Keane was energetic, tenacious, tough in the tackle, fantastic on the ball and a born leader, and throughout his 12 years at Old Trafford, he lifted 7 Premier League titles, 1 Champions League and countless other team and individual honours. His performance in the semi-final of the Champions League against Juventus in 1999, as United overcame a first-leg deficit to reach the final, was arguably the finest career individual performance in a single game of all time. It epitomised everything special about him, as even though he knew he would be suspended for the final owing to receiving a yellow card suspension during the game, he drove his team on, scored the opening goal for United, and made sure that even if he wouldn't be there, his teammates would. Despite leaving in acrimonious circumstances in November 2005 following an unaired interview for MUTV in which he lambasted his teammates after a 4-1 defeat to Middlesbrough, he left behind an untouchable legacy at Old Trafford, and in my opinion, he's a worthy winner of United's Premier League era record signings when ranked from worst to best. And that just about wraps up today's video. If you agree or even disagree with any of my rankings, let me know why and which ones you would change down in the comments below, as well as which other clubs you would like to see me do this type of video for. If you enjoyed it, of course, please don't forget, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. You can ring the notification bell to be notified whenever I upload a video straight away. You can check out the Manchester City version of this series that's linked, I think, about here or something like that. And you can also follow me on Twitter at Hazzabhajan. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, I'll see you then.